open it up with a special recognition, if I may. A wonderful lady who has been here on this board and serving the entire state of California in Assemblyman David Alvarez's office for quite a long time. And before that, City of San Diego, you're a true public servant. You brighten our day. You know what you're doing. You bring confidence wherever you go. And Lisa Schmidt, we would like to honor you with a special recognition for your leadership and your dedication to service. Why don't we come down and have a picture?
Say a few words.
Okay. We will be acknowledging Mr. Gonzalez when he arrives, but he's a terrific guy. He was great in interviews. He's got lots of experience, and he'll bring a lot of that to this board. We'll open now to public communication. Does anybody have something they would like to say, add, predictions for the new year?
There's no public speakers at this time.
Okay, thank you. Well, I thought I'd just call it out. We're going to have, go to our discussion items then. Audits, 24-25 audit engagements with Crow LLP, and we have our representative here. We're looking at Prop O, DD, RR, and district financial audits. So to begin with, so please introduce yourself and proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Whoa, that's warm. Well, yes, I have quite a few reports up there. I am Elizabeth Sov, audit partner with Crow. I'm going to walk you through the results of our audit. I do have some breaking news to share as we start getting going on the audit presentation. So prior to today, we were anticipating unknown delays of how much longer it would take us to issue these financial statements because the federal government had not finalized their audit guide for the federal portion of your audit. Usually it's issued and finalized in the summer, and then we are able to finalize audit reports, you know, in time for the December 15th deadline that the state of California calls for. Well, as you know, the government shut down for a period of time. Prior to that, they hadn't finalized this audit guide in the first place, but the delay, that didn't help. So on Tuesday of last week, they decided to finalize the compliance supplement, which is the audit guide that we must follow, which is great news because we were originally presenting drafts to you all like we normally do, and we were going to have to wait until probably January to present to the board before everything was finalized, not knowing when they would finalize their audit guide. But now that it's finalized, we've coordinated with staff, and we are going to be able to move forward and have this finalized in the next day after we talk, and should stay on schedule with presenting next week. So breaking news, good news. I think it's good news for my team. Oh my gosh, it's been quite a wild ride, but we'll get there. So let's start with the bond reports. These reports in draft have already been presented to the Citizens Oversight Committee back in November. There are no changes to what we presented to them, but I will highlight and kind of bring up to speed and remind what all these reports are, because there's a lot of them. So Prop O, as a reminder, is one of your Prop 39 bonds that was required, that was passed by a simple majority. So when a bond is passed by a simple majority of 55% or more, you're required to have it audited each and every year until it's fully expended. So Proposition O, we have a financial statement. And if you want to just scroll down, sorry. Yep. Yeah, I'll just highlight a couple things on this, and then we'll probably breeze through the others because they all look very similar. And we don't need to read all of that. So, yep, perfect. So, Proposition O, the audit opinion rendered was an unmodified opinion. So you can see at the top says, we have audited the financial statements of Prop O GO bonds, activity of Sweetwater Union High School District for June 30, 2025. In our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects. And then it lists the components of the financials. A reminder, this is purely Prop O activity. We're issuing a specific opinion on this bond measure. And if you scroll down a little bit, Ceci, just down to 2 more pages. Yep. Okay, and so here's your balance sheet for Prop O. This is what's the current position as of June 30. So this is a point in time. This, I'm sure, looks very different now because your bond activities are active and going. Your projects are definitely active, but it's about $57 million in fund balance. And then if you go to the next page, this is your kind of your income statement. So the earnings on the cash balances, and then your total expenditures. That $9 million is what was spent for the year 24-25. The remainder of this financial statement document is talking about accounting policies, how things are accounted for. The financial statement portion of the audit is really looking to make sure that the district is accounting for all of the bond activities in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, that they're following all of their internal controls. But the report that those community members and the board are typically most interested in is the performance audit report. So we'll move over to that one in just a second. So any questions on the financial statements for Prop O bonds before we actually look at the performance audit?
Any questions from the board? I do. Is this basically where you anticipated we would be at this point in the year?
You know, it really varies. It depends on just the project planning for the district. So we don't enter into the bond performance audits with any anticipation of what it should look like, unless they say, hey, we're doing this huge project and maybe there's only a little bit spent. Then we would ask a question. But you'll notice on the performance audit that we actually go and look at your sites. We do an expanded performance audit. We go above and beyond what we would normally do, what's legally required. So you'll see that in the next, where we don't really enter into the performance audit with a, hey, is this what you should have done? But we do dig in and select and detail test and physically go and look at certain areas.
You don't make a judgment on how well we're doing with spending and saving at this point in your research. But at what point do you take a look and make sure that we're really on target with where we hope to be based upon the budgets that we have and so forth?
Well, with the Prop 39 bonds, there aren't any budgets that are taken into account when it comes to the financial audit. What we do look at, how much have you issued, for example? So you have, like, when you pass the bond, there's a certain amount that's been approved. Ceci, actually, if you move down to the next page, where is it? And I don't know, there's a, keep going. Here we go. So Prop O authorized $644 million in GO bonds. So we're going to look at but you don't issue all of that in one standpoint, right? You're going to issue those in different issuances. So we've listed out, you know, what has been issued over different periods of time, because you can't spend all of it all at one time, right? It's tiered. So we will go through and make sure those issuances have been accounted for properly. Then we actually look at the expenditures that they've been spent out properly, and then make sure that they are not trying to issue more than what was authorized, right? To make sure that you've only issued out what was within the authorization approved by the voters.
So this is not an indicator of how far along we've come with our projects, just where our spending is so far, so we keep track of it.
Yeah.
Make sure we got enough at the end, right, to finish it up.
Yes.
And so how often will we be taking a look at this spend down?
Well, I know that that's probably more of a management team. I know Janaea does a lot of that tracking with all the different projects, and she's got a whole giant spreadsheet for each type of bond, because you've got lots of different ones. We're looking at 3 for Propo, Measure RR, Measure DD, but you also have your Melrose bond. So I know that there's quite a tracking that your management team is doing to kind of see where are we spending-wise, and what are we planning for this next year. So.
And this is just the OO?
This is just O, yep.
Okay. And Superintendent Aguirre, what's your take on this? We're about 10% into our spending on this, and at what point do you start taking a look at what we've got left and what to spend and what we have left to build?
Yeah, so the way we do these projects, if you recall, on the monthly agenda, you will see we call it capital improvement program. So that's the plan that includes the expenditures, the allocations. And really, it's not a linear proposition. At the beginning, there's about a third of it that goes to design. So that's the architecture and some of the engineering. And then really the vast majority of the expenditures come toward the back end of a construction project once you're actually in construction. In between, there's a lot of approvals that happen with Division of State Architect, making sure we're doing all that we have to do. So it's not necessarily a linear project. So for example, Castle Park High School, we're mostly done with the stadium project. At Mar Vista High School, we're getting to that point. So I would anticipate that the rate of expensing against the bond is going to increase as we're getting closer to finalizing those, compared to Chula Vista High School as well as Southwest High School. Those are probably further along in terms of when we're actually going to start to see some of the major expenditures coming through. I think what this really does is to kind of compare and contrast our bond and make sure that our expenditures are appropriate as per the bond, and those approvals to ensure that we're doing everything we have to do. In terms of the actual project planning, as Elizabeth mentioned, there's a pretty vast array of spreadsheets and Gantt charts that planning and construction manages on a regular basis. So it kind of depends on the project.
It would be nice to see some kind of a chart that shows the spend down and where commitments have been made, so we can follow almost month by month where these projects are and where the spending is, and are they aligned. If that's something that we can pull together, I think that would be helpful. Because I think most people in the public you would think this is linear. Oh, gee, they've only spent 10% of their
every month
money
is 10%.
now.
Yeah.
Exactly. When really more is committed and in different lots.
Different projects. Yes.
But this is
Okay.
great to know. Go ahead. I'm sorry to
you're
interrupt you.
No, totally good questions. All right. So if you want to move to the performance audit for Propo, so each bond has 2 different reports, like I mentioned. So we just looked at the financial statement. Again, that's purely just making sure that everything's been accounted for properly. And then the performance audit, if you go down to the independent auditor's report, and you can see that it's not really an opinion, it reads differently because this is a performance audit, which is different under government auditing standards. So the very last paragraph there says the results of our tests indicated that in all significant respects, Sweetwater met the objectives listed on pages 3 through 9 and expended Propo GO bond funds for the year ended June 30 only for the specific projects developed by the district's governing board and approved by the voters in accordance with Prop 39. That's what you would want to see at the end of the process, making sure that everything was spent in accordance with what was approved by the voters. over the next 9 pages. It lists out all of the different procedures that we perform. Like I mentioned, this is an expanded performance audit, so the state actually requires us only to sample a certain number of expenditures and purely make sure that they are in line with what was approved by the voters and in the project listing. But you'll see that there's a lot more to these reports as far as actually physically going and looking at certain sites, making sure that bid requirements, et cetera, were followed, contract services, change orders, that kind of thing. So you can see the objective, the procedures performed, and then each one of those has a conclusion listed for you. So we didn't have any exceptions through all of those different processes.
And that's a good thing.
That is
right?
exactly what you would want to see, yes.
Okay, sticking with the program.
Sticking with the program,
Okay.
yep. Ceci, if you want to move to Measure DD. Okay, so Measure DD, this is the financial statement, similar to what we just looked at prior for Prop O. So if we scroll down to the Independent Auditor's Report, which is just there, yep. So again, this is the financial statement opinion. This is all about just Measure DD's financial activity in appointed time through July 1, 24 through June 30, 25. And it is an unmodified opinion. We had no errors, deficiencies, or audit adjustments in relation to that. And I will say, when doing a lot of these bond audits, that we do quite a few across the state of California, these ones are very susceptible to accounting errors because of working with a lot of contractors. You're doing a lot of summer work, getting the right accrual cutoffs and stuff. We oftentimes find errors in bonds. So the fact that you don't have any material errors that occurred, and we don't even have any immaterial errors that occurred through our testing is a level of comfort to those charged with governance, as well as the committee, as well as the community. You can scroll down to page 5, probably, yep. So here is Measure DD. You can see the fund balance is a lot larger. It's a newer bond. And if you scroll down to the next page, this is your total expenditures. So you can see 63 million of expenditures. The revenues, we don't emphasize too much about the revenues because it's purely interest that's just being earned on your cash balance. So it's not like you have money flowing in from other sources for these bonds. This is purely interest income that you're earning of the cash that's sitting in the bank. So I don't talk a lot about the revenues because that's purely all it is we can confirm that and tie that out to bank statements. But the expenditures is really where all of our time is spent, making sure that things were spent appropriately.
And if I may, the reason for that is that we do receive revenues when we initially sell the bonds.
Yep.
That goes with the planning process, board authorization, so we can have it available so that as design and construction gets underway, we utilize that. So
Yep.
once that initial sale of bond happens, then this is the next step. On a regular basis, it's the interest income.
Exactly.
And which line again is the interest earned?
It's the very top line, 7.1 million that was earned on the cash balance for 24-25 fiscal year.
And as long as we have cash in the bank and going out little by little, we'll continue to earn interest? Okay, so that would be a nice thing to
Assuming
watch. Okay.
the markets stay okay.
Please, go ahead.
Yeah, it's never full assurance. Okay, and then if we want to move over to Measure DD's performance audit. So we took that 63 million in expenditures that we just noticed there on the financial statement and applied a lot of different procedures. So if we scroll down to page 1, the auditor's report, and the very last paragraph again reads exactly like Prop O. We had no significant errors that were noted. And as you read through the objectives and the conclusions on each of the objectives, we had no issues noted whatsoever. So not just significant, but nothing noted as far as an error through our processes. Yep. And then the last one would be Measure RR. So this is your brand new bond. And the new issuance just occurred. So again, we have an unmodified opinion, the highest level of assurance that you can receive. And then if you go down to page 5, I think, yep, there we go. So just about 50 million, just shy of 50 million sitting in cash. And that's because looking here, and this is a perfect segue from what Dr. Aguirre was saying, is the proceeds of the sale of the bonds. So this bond was just issued in 24-25, so you can see those proceeds coming in and starting this bond off. So the 50 million down, it says proceeds from sale of GO bonds, and then that money sits in the cash account, and then you'll start earning interest on that as you're paying. The expenditures were very minor, and I think the vast majority of that 859,000 was really due to issuing the bonds. So nothing too exciting there, but this next year we will, I believe we're anticipating activity around the Measure RR bonds.
One more question about the interest that's being earned on these bonds, and thank goodness it's being earned and we're not
Yes.
in the hole with it.
Yeah.
But is that money ultimately available to invest in projects going forward?
Yes, so as you earn interest on the bond funds that are sitting there, you are able to apply those to those bonds moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we want to wait probably until
Yes.
the basic expenses are taken care of and then
Yes.
see what we've got left. Huh?
And I think Dr.
Go,
Sokol
Dr.
can
Sokol.
add some context. Dr. Sokol.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. I'd like to add, because the bonds, they also are monitored by the IRS because they're tax exempt. So there is criteria. You'll hear us talk about arbitrage analysis. So every year we work with our consultant that does the analysis, looks at all of the earnings, and there's various criteria that makes, because the IRS wants to make sure that you're also not making too much money off of what's sitting with the bank or the county treasury, basically. Because if our analysis this year didn't hit a threshold, that money would need to be returned to the IRS. So what is earned is, yes, can be used for projects, but that is a calculation that's done every year too. To make sure that we don't hit certain thresholds where monies would have to be paid to the IRS.
Gotcha. So we've got to watch it as we go.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And I think the goal is making sure that you're actively using the funds, not just banking them. Yep. All right.
Question on the interfund for staff salaries, just making sure that that's accrued for based upon time, not
Yes.
percentages.
Yes, that is one of the specific procedures. Actually, the audit guide specifically requires us to look at any payroll that is charged to bonds. Even if it's a small number, we absolutely have to look at it and make sure that the time incurred was supported by documentation that is sound. Yes.
Because we don't want any more critical and very public audits going on because
Correct, yeah.
we decided to spend before it
Right.
was
Yeah.
time. Okay. And any other thoughts from you, Dr. Sockhill? Okay. Oh, yes, Dan.
I just have one major kudo, and I want to just express this to people because I think there was a little bit of interest from you, Chair, about assessment, how well are they doing? Well, we spent $70 million on projects, and if you look and saw what's our change orders was $111,000. Now, typically, on a government contract, you're at 10%.
Oh.
They're at 0.15%. That means there's solid planning, there is good execution, and kudos. And I'm sorry Ms. Quirk isn't here, but kudos to you also,
Yeah.
Moises.
Thank you. Thank you. And I think that's a very good point. I think we've been really vigilant and thorough with our front end legwork, our research. I remember when we worked on the pool at Mar Vista, we did a lot of visits to other construction sites. So I think as we're going through constantly improving our practice, and this is one of the positive outcomes of that, is we see a very much contained rate for change orders. And so thank you for noticing. That's definitely something that is a byproduct of good quality work.
That's great. That's terrific. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, because good news sometimes is hard to find. And this is really good news.
Yeah.
But a question for you, because I'm ignorant to this. Can that money then be built back into future construction projects, or how does that work?
Well, how it benefits us is if it was at the kind of like prevailing rate at 10%, that would have been $7 million that wouldn't have gone towards other projects. And so it's because of the diligence in planning, we're going to be able to do more. And so that's why I'm really recognizing it.
That's amazing. That's great. Thank you so much. Any comment from you, sir?
Sure, thank you for bringing that up, because early on when I first got elected, this was messy, and I want to thank the team for putting it together and making it what it is now. And it being an expanded audit, as many in the community demanded, it shows that we're doing what we're supposed to do now.
Yep.
So thank you, great work.
And the floor is yours again, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will briefly talk about the Measure RR performance audit. There really isn't much to say because there wasn't a lot of expenditure for Measure RR, where there weren't project sites to go visit, and a lot of it was just the cost of issuance. So I didn't want to ignore it, but again, you'll see the results of our tests indicate in all significant respects that you've met the objectives listed out, but you'll probably see a lot of the objectives saying this didn't apply this year, but we fully anticipate that all of those objectives are going to apply next year as you're spending. Okay, so on to the big guy, Sweetwater Union High School District financial statement, all 106 pages. Which I'm going to get to the fact that that's actually an improvement and this is an exciting day. I know, I'm an auditor and I get excited about this stuff, but it is an exciting day. So our auditor's responsibility is to express an opinion on your financial statements. So we go through a lot of procedures, a lot of requests, a lot of meetings. We do risks of material misstatement. We look at internal control evaluations. So that's our responsibility in this process. Management's responsibility, and I wrote this out so I wouldn't lose track of it, is that they're responsible for the preparation of the financial statements. So yes, we compile all of this into a pretty format, but it's from all of their information. They review it extensively to make sure that everything is appropriate. They are responsible for compliance with all state compliance requirements. They are responsible for the compliance with the Uniform Guidance federal requirements. They are responsible for establishing and maintaining relevant internal controls to develop financial statements and ensure compliance. And they're responsible for evaluation of whether there are conditions or events that raise substantial doubt about the ability to continue as a going concern. That's all of management's responsibilities when it comes to the audit. It's a lot. So if we scroll down just a little bit. Oops, sorry. That's okay. Okay, so opinion. We have audited the financial statements of the governmental activities, each of your major funds, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Sweetwater. And in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly, in all material respects, the respective financial position of each of the components of the financials for June 30, 2025. That's an unmodified opinion, the highest level of assurance that you can receive at the end of the audit. That's not just the good news, because you've had unmodified opinions. So we're going to go down to, if you want to just throw in, it's page 88, but I don't know, yeah, and then go down a couple more pages. I should have written down by the PDF to help you out, Ceci. Every time I'm like, I'm going to do that, and then I forget because I'm tired and it's close to the deadline. So keep going down a couple more. There's a nice summary page on page 88 that summarizes everything that we do. Here we go. Or I guess it's 87, sorry. Okay. All right, so we perform an audit over your financial statements, we perform an audit over your federal awards, and we perform an audit over your state compliance. So for the federal audit, for the financial statements, I have already mentioned we did an unmodified opinion. But this is where the really exciting news comes in. Internal controls, nope, up. She's trying to brush past the good news. Internal controls over financial reporting. Material weaknesses, none identified. Significant deficiencies, none reported. This is the first year since we've been engaged that we have not had a material weakness nor a significant deficiency. And then if you want to scroll down to the next page, we'll come back up here, but we have no deficiencies to report. This is the first time since we've been working with the district that this has been the situation. So I feel like I just want to pause and say this is a really big deal. The N4 system was finally fully implemented. It got rid of the payroll significant deficiency that we had. We've gone through extensive testing and back and forth and many conversations to make sure we had a clear understanding of what the system and how it works and what the controls are. So, great news. Okay. Scroll back up for me, Ceci. Thank you. All right, so federal awards. So although the federal government hadn't finalized their audit guide until last week, they did put out a draft, which is how we performed our procedures. And then thankfully, that was what they actually finalized. So I don't believe there are any material differences. We are still actively vetting it and making sure there's no significant changes since it came out right before the holiday. But to our knowledge, there's nothing significant. So we are planning significant deficiencies and no material weaknesses in relation to your federal compliance this year. And then the 3 programs that we were required to audit this year was special education, the COVID-19 ESF program, which will be probably the final year for that, and then Title IV, 21st Century Community Learning. So the federal government has formulas and approaches of how we are supposed to test which programs, so we don't just kind of pick these. We have a certain guide that tells us what to pick. So quite a bit of testing. We don't normally have 3 programs. It's a lot of work. So kudos to your team that there were no findings as a result of all of those specific audits for those programs. And last but definitely not least, your state awards. We have an unmodified opinion, which is, again, the highest level of assurance that you can receive at the completion of your state awards audit. And if you want to scroll down 3 pages, so 1, 2, and then 3. So this is the only finding that we have in the report this year related to independent study. I do want to highlight that the state compliance audit, they do not allow for materiality. So if you find something that's outside of the procedure, it's not in line with what the procedure says, we automatically have to report it in the report. So you'll notice that if you scroll down just one little smidge on fiscal impact, is $36,265 was the total fiscal impact for the independent study program. It was 2.43 ADA. It's not a huge number. But regardless, if we find any, like a signature is missing on an independent study agreement, we have to report it. So the fact that this is your only finding in the current year is excellent news. The rest of this report in the following pages, we don't need to scroll down if we don't want to follow the scrolling, but it lists out your prior year findings, so you're able to see what the prior year findings were and whether or not they were implemented. So if you want a refresher on what was there last year, you can take a look at that, and you'll notice that all but one have been remedied from the external audit.
What page is that in the report?
This is page 90, but I think that this might be,
Our numbers are different. Yeah.
yes, I think this might be the wrong report because short-term independent study was removed. So,
Oops.
yep.
So we'll get another report.
Does the one in yours have that
Oh.
in your packet?
I'm not finding it.
Okay, then the one you have is right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just a little, that must have been the older one. But the one you have in your packet, the only difference is that the fiscal impact is less And short-term independent study was actually not a finding, it was remedied, and so you'll see it removed. So yours is correct. Even better news. Yeah. Yeah.
It was the timing when it got loaded, because I think of
Okay.
we had it right before the break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I have 4 other items I am required to report to you all. Number 1, there were no significant difficulties encountered when working with your management team. We had no disagreements encountered. We are not aware of your management team shopping around for other opinions if they didn't like what we had to say about something. We are not aware of them asking another firm what their thoughts are. We would be required to report that to you. And then we had no significant or adverse events that require your attention at the completion of the audit. So no news is good news in the world of audit. So, any questions?
No questions, just comments. Say thank you for all the work that you've done. And the Sweetwater audit was expanded also?
No.
Or that one's
The Sweetwater District, this follows our professional standards. It follows the federal guide and the state guide.
What?
It's just a lot. It is expanded in the world of, like, it's a lot of work, but not expanded.
I want to thank the team for all the work, and not seeing Infor in there was surprising, so I was expecting to see it, but it's good news, so
Yeah.
great work.
Won't have to blow my top over Infor again. But, and it's working, I hope.
Yes.
Thank you so much. In your experience going forward, would you have any thoughts of what we should focus on to stay on this very positive path?
I think the key, I have to be careful because I'm providing guidance and opinion and advice is limited within the scope of what I have been hired to do. But I would say that keeping solid oversight and making sure that you have a good communication between your management team and the board is really one of the big keys to make sure that you're feeling you're getting the information you need and that they're also getting the support that they need.
Thank you so much. Dr.
And if I
Aguirre?
may, I just want to mark the moment to say thank you to Dr. Salkeld and her team. I see a number of her team here. We've really been down this path of moving over our financial system, our HR system since 2018 and that meltdown. And the fact that we are here now, Ms. Sav and her audit firm has been with us through thick and thin and when it was not easy. And thankfully, we've arrived at this place now. To kind of your point, I think the goal is ongoing monitoring, ongoing awareness, and the reality is, I think to be able to have quality management in the district makes all the difference. And I think we have that, and Dr. Salko and her entire team, I think, have gotten us to this place, and it's a place we want to maintain this high level of performance, so that our community can have trust that we're spending and investing dollars that are scarce in a way that's transparent and really supports the learning of our students. And so I didn't want to let the moment go unperceived as well, because it's been a long and at times arduous path. But I'm grateful that we're here, speaking of just recently having finished with Thanksgiving. That's what I'm thankful for.
Any comments from you?
No, that's it, thank you.
And I'd just like to add extra kudos. This is tremendous, and kudos going to our staff, Dr. Salkeld and our financial staff, and management throughout the district, and the rank and file people who recognize the value of the time they're putting into classrooms, the value of the equipment they need, all of it, and work together to make things really successful here in the district. I think we're moving in the right direction. Truly, I do. And with that, any more you'd like to add on the audit?
No, not missing anything?
Yeah. Dr. Salkeld?
We will take these reports, we'll get a final version without the watermarks on it,
Yep.
so that we can bring forward to the board on Monday, so the committee having a recommendation to bring that forward. So we will be, as Elizabeth mentioned, on track to stay with our December 8th meeting before the December 15th deadline.
Exactly. Okay, terrific. And do we have a motion to refer this to full board? Yes, I guess we do.
I'll second.
Okay. And those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Terrific. Thank you so very much. I know we have a lot more to cover, but thank you so much for being here and presenting this in a way that's understandable, too.
Good.
And if people at home are watching, I don't know why they would be, but if people at home are watching, please know that this management team and the staff here at the district, and of course our auditors, all working together to make sure that we've restored trust and that we're moving along in a direction that will better serve this entire community. So thanks, everybody, for all your hard work and your diligence in this.
Yep, thank you. I will see you next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we've handled the other ongoing and completed external audits and review. That was part of what you presented to us. And then we'll.
Trustee
yes.
Emerald, that's actually a separate item.
Oh, okay.
That's
Excellent. So that's there.
1B. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
On to you, Dr. Sawkill. Thank you.
Thank you. So this next item is an update to the committee of the various either program reviews or financial audits as was presented. So we have a couple that are still ongoing. The first item is through the CDE. It's the School Food Authority. I actually connected with Mr. Span, our Director of Nutrition Services, because he's leading that particular review because it's under that program with the child nutrition or the nutrition program. And so we've provided all the documentation. It's a lot right now at this point, waiting for them for additional samples, additional information. So we've complied with the deadline with the document, so we'll await next steps. So that's ongoing or pending. The other item too is with CalPERS. They do a census review. It's part of the state audit of their particular financials. We've also provided that information to them. We've not received any update as of yet. So it was over the summer. So we will continue to monitor this one if there's any additional information needed. Okay. And then the next one is the IRS. This is for the tax form 941 for the 2023 year. So we've been working very closely with the County Office of Education on this because they complete the payroll for the district and they do a lot of these filings. So this one's been very active. We've been working with the IRS representative. They too were shut down, obviously, for a period of time. So they kind of waited when they were back. And so they've been following up on some questions, additional data for payroll or different information that they've needed on that. So again, it's a lot of exchange of data. So I don't have a time horizon as to when that would be completed, but we're moving along with what they're reviewing. The next one is CalSTRS reporting. They have looked at sampling about 5 employees. So again, exchange of information, payroll records. Again, we've been corresponding over the last few months with them since September. And so we should have another batch of information to them by this month. So they just look at timekeeping records. They want additional pay rate information, that kind of, it gets very granular in some of the details.
They don't release results as they're going. They just wait until it's completely done and then.
And this one's unique because they'll release it and then they send it off to another unit in case of if there's any findings or things like that that they hand it over to. But yes, they don't send out any information until this is done from their standpoint.
Do you anticipate when that might be?
Again, the time horizon, I hopefully it's soon, but I don't have a definitive.
It's a mystery. Okay, thank you. All right, go ahead, I'm sorry.
But once we have that report, we do bring that back to the committee, so you're aware of what the outcomes were. And then the next section here is, again, what Elizabeth Sav with Crow mentioned. We just have that documented here as well. So once it goes to the board, we'll note that as completed.
And then we go to financial reports or summary of activities. Is that correct?
This one should be the Associated Student Body, yes. So at
Okay.
this time, we bring to the committee, because we work closely with our associated student bodies after we bring forward the unaudited actuals in September, the work with the audit team here, because we want to ensure, and this started a couple years ago, that the funds at these schools are not sitting with significant dollars on hand. We want to make sure that they're investing it back into the student body. And so we go through this calculation and reach out to them for spend down plans. And so each one in your packet, you should have the information. Each one of those schools have provided, and they've worked with the students, they've worked with the principals on how to spend dollars. In some cases, some want uniforms, and I see with Mr. Hughes here, we review that with him to make sure from a compliance standpoint that it's okay. They also, some want, let's say, scoreboards that might be affixed to the building. If so, we work closely with Janaea Quirk from a facility standpoint. But you can see various samples there that Ceci has up for Bonita Vista Middle. It's about $18,000, and they've documented. Again, this is all vetted with the student body as to how they'd like to spend those funds, and reviewed by all the parties at the school site, and then I review it as well before we bring it here. And one was at that school, I think it was very minimal, 2,500. It ended up a picnic table, that they're getting some picnic tables for the campus. Just providing an update to the committee.
There's a kind of a belief out there on the street that these are all movable, changeable numbers because of the federal government and whatever is happening there behind their closed doors. What are, do we have some contingencies? Are we looking to keep a little money back just in case we see wholesale cuts in funding to various educational programs in the country?
And this is the ASB derived from their student body fundraisers.
Okay, I got you. This is just the student body
It's all the
fundraising.
student body, from what they've fundraised, or if they have excess from some of those fundraisers.
Or if they need extra from the district to help round it out, do they get that? Or is this
To
all
work
on
with their
them?
principal if they want to use some of their discretionary funds, if that's something that's agreed upon there. But a lot of the time it's within, because they have their own general fund activity. And so this is the analysis that comes from that. Yeah, so this is,
And is funding pretty much an ongoing thing?
yeah, they come up, they've got various activities that they do at the school site. They all complete fundraising forms, and they provide a mini P&L or profit and loss, looking at the revenues, looking at the expenditures, and then this is any extra. And then there's also, that's a component of their general fund, but they also have trusts. So there's various trusts that's set up with various criteria, various clubs, and those funds are separate and apart.
Gotcha, thank you.
Again, for the committee for review, then we will work with each site to ensure that they spend these funds as best as they can before June.
And the schools have a guide in terms of allowable activities that they use to kind of go off of that does come to the board for approval. Is that on
And
an
that's-
annual basis, Dr. Sacco?
And that's what we brought forward to the committee in October.
October.
There was no change to that yet. It's a guideline that says what's the expenditures and what to spend it on, and we bring it to the board if there are any changes.
Yeah. So in essence, as students fundraise, they have a menu of things that they could use that funding for without having to come to the board every single time and trying to figure out if it was inappropriate or not. The board pre-adopts a list of allowable investments and expenses.
But the process is allowed, but it's not encouraged. We're encouraging the students to go out and raise money in whatever way they can, and then come to us if they wind up with a shortfall or some unexpected extra needs.
Again, they work through, and if there's any shortfall, it's within their general fund, or if it's within the trust, I think
Okay.
they're working through that piece of it.
At each campus, basically.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. Thank you very much. Do we want to accept these reports? Just,
Yeah,
yeah.
accept them.
So would we have a motion to accept these ASB reports?
Motion to accept?
Second?
And those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay. I think that was unanimous.
Yes.
The fraud hotline comes up again. Is this, do we have any calls? Anything interesting come through the fraud hotline?
So I'll ask Mr. Hughes to give us a brief summary of what's been going on with the fraud hotline.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me tonight. As usual, I'm here to present the quarterly report for the fraud hotline. Kind of the trend that you're going to see, and based on the presentation I have after this, is that while we're getting reports to the fraud hotline, they're not fraud related. So this year, there's been 5 reports to the fraud hotline, which is through our consultant integrity counts. 4 of those have all been from the same division in the transportation division, and they more relate to interpersonal employee-to-employee interactions and concerns about that. Those types of complaints, as you'll see in my next presentation, are referred to the administrator in charge of the program, and they are investigated that way. But we do give the complainant a response through integrity counts as well after the investigation is conducted. The last one that's still pending is it's kind of a strange situation in that the person is claiming that a particular person out there forged a diploma from one of our schools. So we're looking into that. But it's a little difficult when they select strict anonymity through the program, through integrity counts, because they're hard to contact to get follow-up questions. So at this point, we don't have any fraud-related complaints this year on the fraud hotline. We've closed 4 of the 5 that have come in, and we're still doing some side investigation on the claim of the forged diploma.
This is an excellent report.
Thank you.
I know why they call it the fraud hotline, because, you know, it's allegedly somebody's done something wrong, and but each of our reports coming through, we're seeing the same thing. Is there a different way we can present this, and, you know?
Yeah, so I have a presentation tonight, a secondary presentation that I put together based on feedback from our from the last quarterly report.
Unless you want to hear more about this initial, okay, the floor is yours.
Awesome. So Ceci's going to help me by going through my slides here. So as you'll recall, the board instituted a third-party complaint system for fraud through a vendor known as Integrity Counts, and we've had that contract since January 22nd of 2018. That was when it was first approved by the board. The contract was initially for 3 years, and then they had 2-year opportunities for extensions at the sole discretion of the district, and the current cost annually is $12,000. Next slide. So I want to call to, and I think this is kind of where there's a drop-off between folks seeing a fraud hotline option on our website and what the reality of what fraud hotline is. Even in our board policy, if they were to read the board policy, it says that the fraud hotline is not a substitute for instructional, curricular, student complaints, or employment-related grievances or appeals, or those are handled through existing board policy that directs us on how to handle certain types of complaints, whether it's employee to employee, student to employee, community member, things like that. What we're seeing, next slide, please, Ceci, is that we get a lot of non-fraud related complaints, right? So what happens when there's a non-fraud related complaint is that the compliance office heads up making sure that this gets investigated, even though it's not fraud, even though it came in on the fraud hotline. And we refer it to the site administrator if it's at a school, or a director if it's in a division, and we ask them to investigate and report back to us what their findings are, so that we can then issue to the complaining party a closeout memorandum that says, we've looked into this and this is what we found. Many of them are unsubstantiated. A lot of them seem to be nuanced on complaints that are disagreements in the workplace between employees, where the ability for them to file the complaint anonymously kind of drives them using the fraud hotline. Next slide, please, Leslie. So what we did was we wanted to give you information, though, also that the fraud hotline is not the only venue for which we have complaints flowing into the district. So in the compliance office, we track and monitor all concerns that come to our office. Because we're on the front page of the website, we're kind of the district ombudsman person in terms of complaints. And we just kind of take the ones that are in our realm, so to speak, where we're responsible for investigating, and we do those investigations. But we also monitor, follow, and support people that have complaints and make sure that they're getting to the right person to have their complaint investigated and remediated, hopefully. So in the past 2 years, we've had over 300 complaints, and some of those have been related to potential fraud that have come directly to the compliance office and not through the fraud hotline. Some of those examples involved booster clubs, now known as school-connected organizations, some theft, claims of theft by employees, sports teams fundraising, facilities use, and cash deposit handling are some examples of those complaints that did not go through the fraud hotline but reached the district through the compliance office. Next slide, Seth. So when we handle a complaint, we get almost everything now through compliance, to be quite honest with you. The fraud hotline complaint system seems to be, again, where there's some disgruntled employees that are having trouble with each other rather than what the true intent was. Next slide, Seth. So once we get a report from the third party, there's a little nuance also in the way that comes in. If it's a phone call to the third party, they put in the information, and it's much more difficult for us to contact that person if it's strictly anonymous, which is a choice that they have, because we're really only interacting with the third party consultant rather than the person. If the person puts it in electronically through and provides their email, it's blocked from us recognizing who that is, but we're able to interact with them through messaging and things like that as part of the investigation. Regardless, we generate a report, and again, myself and the internal audit office, we look at all of these different complaints. We make sure which ones are fraud or non-fraud, and we make sure that they're handled appropriately. Next slide, Ceci. So this is kind of, I think, the main information that you all were looking to access. So this is 2019-20 school year through present time, the number of complaints per year, fraud-related versus non-fraud. So as you can see, the trend has been, with the exception of an anomaly in 23-24 school year, it's really been 3 total fraud-related complaints with the exception of that school year, 14 total over that time period. There's an asterisk there for the 11 and 23-24 because 7 of the complaints were from the same complainant about the same individual in a sports team at one of our high schools. So those were all related to the same situation. And the non-fraud are all over the place. Everything from, people not answering the phones in a timely manner to we've had 1 or 2 concerns that were related to sexual harassment that were handled after they came through on the fraud hotline. We've even had, recently we've had what we believe is like a bot trying to access the fraud hotline because it was just random characters going on and on and on. So in total, for those roughly 7 years or 6.5 years, we have 50 total complaints that have come from the fraud hotline, and 36 of those have been non-fraud. 14 have been fraud related, and then again, if you look at that, half of those were the asterisks that they were the same essential complaint about the same person in the same program. Next slide, sis. So just to kind of sum up, we've had a lot of different things come through. On the fraud side, lack of appropriate accounting on fundraising, those were those 7. Employee theft, misuse of sick leave and or vacation time. On the non-fraud side, again, I gave you some of those examples early before this slide. Misconduct by staff, bots. We even had a student that was complaining that his chips that he was selling to other students were confiscated by the main office, and that he didn't get them back in a timely manner. So those are the types of things that are coming in to the complaint system. Next slide, Ceci. Regardless, again, this is our whole process, whether it's non-fraud, we send them a memorandum closing it out, telling them whether it was substantiated or not. And then we ultimately, at the end of that, when we tell them that we looked into it, I provide them with our office's contact information so that if they have a concern that they want to contact us related to our findings, they can do that as well. If it's a fraud complaint and the internal audit discovers that their fraud occurred, that goes through the senior management and the cabinet and the superintendent, and those reportings also could have law enforcement activity. Next slide. And that is the fraud hotline. Essentially, I think you see the trend here has basically been non-fraud has been winning the day, so to speak, with the complaints, whereas true fraud-related complaints are not flowing in any manner that would cause concern, I would say.
I got you. It appears from the numbers and the consistency over these last few years that we have a solution in search of a problem.
Okay.
And maybe we want to rethink whether we continue this as a fraud hotline versus perhaps if we have alternative dispute resolution, we steer people to alternative dispute resolution. But I appreciate that. Let's go to our other speakers here. Yes, go ahead.
It seems like times have changed. You know, we have a better receiving end in order to get the complaints. People seem to be comfortable based upon the data going to the compliance office, and I think that's doing a phenomenal job. Resources for the amount of complaints that we're actually getting going to the fraud hotline. It was probably a great idea back then, but now I think we should maybe relook that.
And I think you were around for some of those conversations, Mr. Gutowski. I remember those.
It was my suggestion. That's why I'm saying it's okay if we get rid of it.
Times change.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I feel the same way. Great presentation, by the way. Do we know if a board's going to get this, the complete board?
If it's something that's requested, I mean, the presentation's complete and drafted. We probably I don't know if we have time to add it for this agenda coming up in December, but perhaps for the January agenda,
Sure.
we can definitely plan on the January agenda.
Yeah, I think that would be great because we do need to look at it. Because out of the 14 that came through the fraud hotline, how many of those did we get actually without, like if they were the same as, like say, they came through the other channels? Do we know?
I don't know can you repeat the question one more time?
So the 14, so I know there was 50 whatnot. and
50
then-
total, 14 were fraud related.
Yeah, so of those 14, if we didn't have the fraud hotline, how many of those would we have captured?
I think that we would have, my opinion would be that we would have captured those. The unique thing about the 7 that were related to the same person at the same school, those came to the compliance office as well simultaneously. So they weren't just, oftentimes folks will do repeated complaints when they aren't satisfied with an answer, right? So those complaints came directly to the compliance office as well. There were investigations conducted, things like that. So in that sense, that's half of the ones that came in. The other ones, the 2 that I can recall that were employee theft related, we were already, as a district, we were already aware, we were already investigating. They came in on the fraud hotline from other anonymous sources. So in total, I can't give you like an exact answer, but at least 9 of those I would think the district was aware of before they even came to the fraud hotline.
Oh, okay, that's great. That's great information. So yeah, I think we do need to look into it and see if we still need it or not. But thank you for all that work.
Absolutely.
But in the meantime, do we have a motion to accept this report?
So moved.
Okay, and a
Second.
second? All right, and with that, I think a vote yes or no? Yes? Aye?
Aye.
Aye?
All right.
Okay, we got it. That's
Anonymous.
unanimous. But a great report, and it's an interesting take on what's happening in the way of complaints, conflicts, all of that in the district and what's reported. And I fear that if we take something like this away, though, having some kind of a place where people can vent or report, some kind of an insult, we might wind up with more. Now, this is just an old, fraud chaser who spent so many decades chasing bad guys and putting them in prison. But, this is a big society right here, and things happen. And I believe that we still need to have a place where students in particular can lodge a complaint about any number of things. Maybe that will give us a gauge, too, the issues that young people are dealing with.
Yeah, I do want to point out that the compliance office in general has been serving in this ombudsman person role. So we're over 300 complaints each of the last 4 years. And also, we have a general compliance email that is listed on the front page of the website for Sweetwater, and that tends to get a lot of, we get a lot of reports through that system, as well as our general phone line, which has an answering ability. To that effect, I think people generally will go to the website and see compliance and go straight to it. I don't know that they're digging through to get to the fraud hotline as it is.
Okay, maybe if you post something on the hotline,
Right.
say, hey, for fraud, push
Click
here.
here, yeah.
But thank you for what you're doing. I think it's really important to have an outlet like this for students as well as staff, and maybe people in the community who come in contact and have some kind of a response,
Right.
whether it's positive or negative. But thank you so much for
Sure thing,
monitoring
absolutely.
this. It's
Thank
great.
you.
Thanks. With that, we've already voted?
Mhm.
Yes,
To accept.
and
I believe a review of the minutes.
and those would be the minutes from October.
October 6th.
Okay.
You guys just need to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Aye.
And there was one issue that I wanted to just mention, and it was in the main body of the financial reports, and it has to do with the benefits for former employees. And the financial reports that indicate that money is getting drawn down, and I would like to look at that. What's the acronym for it?
At the GASB 75, what we probably call the OPEB, the post-employment benefits,
Yeah, and we say that we're gonna provide these post-employment benefits basically for the lifetime, but it doesn't appear that there's enough money in there to do it. Maybe we could get a report back at our next regular meeting or our next committee meeting.
We can share that with them. I mean,
Exploring OPEB.
Yeah, and for context, OPEB is a pretty unique circumstance, so I'll ask Dr. Sacco just to briefly describe what it pertains to, because I think there might be some clarification that might be helpful.
Right,
Dr.
it's an actuarial analysis that looks over a course of time, and it's all based on the district's contracts too, what we have with our bargaining units and what is covered for healthcare, as an example, for our retirees. It does look at the population of the retirees, also looks at active, what could be a possible liability when you put that together, and I want to say it's a little over $150 million. But we have it set up as we pay as we go. So we cover our employees based on those that are currently retired. We do share that. I think we provided, and we can share it was a board memo that it went, I believe, in early October that highlighted that. There's various assumptions that go into that analysis. It looks at discount rates, it looks at different factors to come up with that liability. It is a requirement of the accounting standards with the audited financials that looks at that, what could be that liability at that point in time. But the district does account for in the budget what we pay out every year, about $4 to $5 million of benefit costs for the retirees.
Gotcha.
In accordance with the bargaining agreements.
I think I would like to get a report back on where we stand with it. The language in the report indicates that this is something that goes on for life. And I'm just wondering, will we have enough money going forward to provide that, to satisfy that promise?
We can share the actuarial report, 'cause I think that also went to the board. We can share the actuarial report that goes into a little bit more detail, because what the auditors take just an excerpt from that, but we can reshare the
It just
audit.
looks as though the money that's sitting there to pay out is getting smaller and smaller. And if I misread it, call me on that. But I'm just wondering if we can keep that promise of the post-employment benefits for life. And then there was another issue, real quickly. that I'd like to see on our next docket. And that has to do with the Community Bond Oversight Committee. The verbiage in the report says, oh, they meet every month, but they don't. Maybe statutorily, they have to meet quarterly, and they're doing just that. In the last year, this Bond Oversight Committee met only 3 times, and there's a lot of business that really needs to be conducted, and I'd like to take a closer look at this committee and how we can make it something that's of real value, not only to us, but to the community, where they want to be engaged. And each month or every other month meeting and having ideas on and how we can work together and answer their questions, satisfy some concerns. And so these are issues that I would like to see going on dockets here pretty soon. I think they're important.
I'll share that feedback with Ms. Quirk, who
Yeah.
oversees planning and construction.
Okay, so do I make a motion with that? We'll snag her when she comes in, first thing she walks in the door.
I can reach out tomorrow
Okay,
to make sure
that's
she
great.
understands the feedback from today.
I think we're just about at the end, so we want to recap any comments. Mr. Solis, do you have anything you would like to add before we disappear?
No, I just wanted to say thank you to the team for great performance at audits and wonderful job up here. And yeah, that's it. Great job. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Hughes, or would you care to say anything? Oh, I'm sorry, Dan.
Gutowski.
Dan, that
That's
was
all right.
Hughes, I'm sorry, never mind.
Thank you all for the hard work each and every single one of you do. It's made the district a better place financially and in many ways.
Yeah, well, today's reporting was fabulous. I mean, it's great. Can't sit on our laurels, I know, but man, it's great to have some good news, especially going into the holidays, you know. And Dr. Aguirre?
Likewise, I just want to say thank you. I don't know if we're going to see you before the holidays, Mr. Gutowski, so I'm going to extend happy holidays to you and yours, and I'll see the board next Monday.
Okay, okay. And with that, this meeting is adjourned.